Welcome to Slammed, a Boston Celtics podcast where we cover the Celtics and the rest of the NBA. I'm Meghan Ottolini from WEEI, joined by Esteban Bustillos from GBH and Justin Turpin, also of WEEI and Odyssey. So while most of the NBA is going on break, we are here to look at, drum roll, Joe Mazzulla's 100th victory and where these Celtics sit at partway through the season. I mean, All-Star break, it's like not exactly half, but partway through the season. And so let's just start there. How are you guys feeling with where the Celtics are? Is there anything that you could even nitpick with this team after the blowout that they had over the Nets with the 50-point win last night?
Yeah, shout out to what a heartwarming moment they had giving Mazzulla the game ball after his 100th victory with the team, which it's weird to think that he's already been here for that long to get that many wins. I mean, this is about as strong as you can look heading into the All-Star break, right? Two back-to-back wins, going from Brooklyn back to Boston, and last night's game, not even a contest. I mean, a 50-point victory to head into the break. Best overall record in the league right now, 43-12, fifth in points per game, first in net rating, first in rebounds. I think this is I don't know if there's any even nitpicks. I thought we talked about this last week on our episode. Then they did really good at the trade deadline. This is I think they have every reason to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, 43-12, like you said, best record in the league, and it's their best mark since the 08-09 season. So they really haven't had a start like this in a long, long time. And to be 6 games ahead of the Eastern Conference this early into the NBA season is insane. Like the gap they've built on the rest of the Eastern Conference. I mean, there just has been so much to like when you look at this team. Like, look at the improved in the clutch there. 18-8, tied for the second most wins, or tied for the most wins with the Nuggets in the league. 17-9 on the road, tied for the second most in the league. It's just, there's so much to like about what this team's done, and the numbers show it.
Absolutely. And I started with Mazzulla's 100th victory because I want to talk about the week that Mazzulla's having. And it's funny because, like, I'm going to cut him a little slack here. He's coming off some interesting appearances. First of all, I need to get this out of the way because this isn't even in the show doc. But Justin, what is the Spider-Man thing going on? So you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. They've actually had a different kind of key word for every press conference. Ironically, they didn't have one last night, but before the Spider-Man, it was, yeah, right. They probably did.
Esteban, do you know about this?
I saw it for the first time last night when someone asked Jaylen Brown about Spider-Man, but I was caught off guard. I was, so please, sir, please explain.
Yeah, so they've had like a different key word for each press conference. So 2 games ago, it was pass the pill, where Al Horford said it, and then they all said it, pass the pill. It's like, no one really says that. And then Joe mentioned Spider-Man, and like Jaylen's kind of came up organically, but Tatum went out of his way to mention Spider-Man. So like, I think they're kind of messing with the media a little bit, but it is kind of funny. They didn't have one last night, at least to our knowledge. But I did think the Spider-Man comparison was kind of funny, and it's kind of true in a sense too, but they have had like a different code word for each press conference, like where they're all kind of saying it. So that's something to watch when you're listening to these, because they've done it the last couple times.
Justin, are you too young for Super Troopers?
Yeah, never heard of that.
No, never. You've never heard of the movie Super Troopers?
No.
Okay, so we were talking about this during one of the breaks this week on the radio show, and Super Troopers is I think you would like it a lot. I recommend that you go back and watch it. I want to say it's like early aughts comedy, very stupid movie about highway state troopers. But the thing is, they play this game where when they pull people over, it's not going to be funny when you explain a joke, but basically they try to say meow as many times to the person. And I feel like that's what the Celtics are doing. Like, they're meowing the media right now. And I'm just like, how bored is this team? Or just how weird is Joe? But I do think that it indicates that this team is in a very stupid way. Like, it's a stupid indication, not that it's stupid that they feel this way, but that they're buying in to what Joe Mazzulla is selling. And it's hard to see why they wouldn't. Everyone except for maybe Jaylen Brown, because earlier over the weekend, Jaylen did have this to say when they were down at halftime about Joe Mazzulla's jokes in the locker room.
He said he told a couple jokes in the third quarter to break up the tension.
Yeah.
Did he do that?
Yeah, I mean,
Does he do that often, I guess?
Joe tell jokes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he does it often, but I think he definitely, tries to put his personality in there. Some days he has better luck than today. I would say, but
He told us they were very funny.
that's what he told you.
Yeah.
Then I guess that's what we're gonna go with. We were losing at the time. I didn't find it funny, but I understand. That's Joe.
So Jaylen, I do think that Jaylen veers a little more on the serious side with some of this stuff. But I just wanted to go into I still can't believe you haven't seen Super Troopers, but I wanted to go into that for a minute. Mazzulla is also in the middle of, he picks his spots with media guys, and I don't think he really started this. You guys remember a couple weeks back, Kendrick Perkins, who of course is a Celtics champion, and is on ESPN. He had this quote that was like, Joe Mazzulla, you put his brain in a bird, sometimes it'll fly backwards, something along the lines of that. He's used the same quote to talk about Kyrie Irving too. And this is what he had to say. He was being a little bit critical of the Celtics offense.
But when you also have their personnel, I would love to see more post-ups from the wings and the guards. When you think about Jason Tatum, 6'9", 6'10", wide shoulders, and his variety of moves that he have on that low block and mid-post areas. Drew Holiday is an underrated post player in the league. When he gets a player of his size, his strength and his ability to get to his spots is so underrated. It's times where you see Jaylen Brown somewhat disappear throughout the offense. So again, it's about finding that balance and not just being a three-point shooting team, because if those threes are not falling, what else are you going to lean on? And I feel like they have the personnel to do it. They just have to get it done and start practicing it now.
And so, Turp, I'm wondering, were you in the press conference when Joe Mazzulla addressed that kind of indirectly?
Yeah, it's actually the second time he's kind of taken an indirect shot at Perk. There was another one earlier in the year where he was given the injury report and a reporter jokingly asked him for a doctor's analysis on it. He said, I can't do that. I'm a bird brain. So he keeps receipts on it. Like, he knows what Perk is saying. And I was at the press conference for that one. And I kind of love this back and forth between them two.
So here's exactly what he said.
Yeah, I mean, we talked over the last week or so. We definitely think we need to post more. I don't think we're posting enough. And so Al's kind of been good at getting those mismatches, and the guys have been able to find them.
Why is that something you feel like you should emphasize more?
I was joking. We're second in frequency and first in efficiency.
And it's true that the Celtics are second only behind the Nuggets, at least at the time of this press conference, in their efficiency in post-ups. But I guess, do you guys, I don't have a problem with him going back and forth with Perk. Like, Perk has started it. That's his right. Whatever. Put your energies wherever you want to put them. But does he have any kind of point, even though those stats don't really back up, but the spirit maybe of what he was saying? And is Joe still maybe a little bit sensitive about the 3-point Mazzulla ball that everybody, seems to glom onto in kind of a casual way, Esteban?
I guess my first question: have they met? Have they ever do we know if they've ever interacted in person?
I don't know. I hope so, because I feel like it's kind of I personally don't I throw shots out there when I can. I try to go and be in locker rooms and stuff when I can. I haven't done enough this year. But you take a shot at somebody basically calling them a bird brain. It's kind of tough if you have never met them.
Yeah, and this is sort of the state of how things work when you have that large platform. You can say I guess riskier things, and it gets attention. So it makes sense. I don't necessarily. I mean, the numbers themselves don't back it up per se. This criticism. I think overall the game. We touched on this before too. The game isn't moving as much towards post ups. I think if you're first only behind Denver, who has Jokic, or second only behind Denver. That's a pretty good place to be, especially when you have someone as talented as Porzingis. They're not going and just barreling their shoulders into people anymore, and that's across the league. So I don't think this is just something that the Celtics are dealing with per se. So I kind of side or go against the criticism here, because I don't necessarily think it applies in this case. At least me personally.
I think maybe Perk, look, it's a terrible specific example to use because the stats don't back it up. I do think that there is a little bit of the game where the variety can sometimes get a little stagnant, but I don't see that as a criticism with this year's team compared to previous teams. Like last year's team, the team that Ime Udoka coached 2 seasons ago, I mean, that team, the ball would get stuck on offense all the time. So, I just don't feel like I understand what Perk is saying. Nobody ever wants to live and die by the 3, even in the modern game. But I wouldn't criticize this team for that on most nights. And then I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys watched, if you noticed, I should say, in that Nets game, the first of the back-to-back, that the first minute 15 or minute 20 of the game was just almost entirely post-ups on offense. And I doubt Mazzulla would say that's intentional, but it felt like a little bit of a dig to play from the inside in the entire, just to jumpstart that game.
Yeah,
20 of their first 23 were in the paint that game.
That's
almost
wild.
Almost like Perk drew it up.
And I think
so there you go. In the end, he's getting what he wants, right?
Yeah, and I think too, the post play itself is changing too, right? We're not just seeing guys going and again barreling their way towards the rim. It's getting fading more, getting open shots near the rim, not necessarily at the rim, which is something Porzingis has done really well throughout his time here in Boston and throughout his time in the league. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to look the way someone like Kendrick Perkins would do it back in that heyday. They're still doing it. It's just looking a little bit different. Again, not just in Boston, across the league as a whole.
So as we look ahead, we're going to address some of the All-Star stuff and take flight. But coming out of the All-Star break, this is always a little bit of a vulnerable time for teams who are front runners in the league. I'm not saying front runners game to game, but front runners in terms of how far ahead the Celtics look on top of the rest of the East. What do you guys see as vulnerabilities for this team as they look down the stretch ahead of the playoffs?
I mean, I think it's just how far they want to take. I think the easiest thing for anybody in their position to do would be get complacent, to feel like they have such a great record. The other teams in the East are all trying to look up to them, and they've really been in that position really the entire year. I think on-court execution is looking good. I mean, as long as they stay healthy, I think they'll stay in the position that they're in. I think the only sort of thing that can get in the way of things is themselves, which has been maybe one of the Achilles heel for the Celtics these past few years, is them being able to handle the success that they've had, or being able to figure things out. But they don't have to do that anymore. This team, it seems, has figured out what it is. So I think it's just not getting comfortable. At least that's what I see at this point.
Yeah, I also think they can't stumble out of the All-Star break. Like, that's something they did last year. 4 games after the All-Star break last year, they lost the number 1 seed and never reclaimed it. And granted, they didn't have a 6-game cushion like they do this year, but that's something they can't afford to do again. Like, they need to stay focused, and that's something Mazzulla's preached, like staying focused, winning the day-to-day battle, and just kind of taking it right with that right mindset. So I don't think it'll be a problem, but I'm with Esteban. I think you're kind of going to tinker a little bit here in the second half, really figure out what your playoff rotation is going to look like going forward. forward, start to get those new guys acclimated, because it looks like Xavier Tillman could really have a spot in this playoff rotation. So I think health is obviously the biggest thing, and just continuing the day-to-day grind that they've been doing.
Couldn't get my mute button off. I largely agree. I think complacency is always an issue for these teams, not just Celtics in particular, but these teams that have championship aspirations. I think health is the other important thing, and it's hard because that's even with all the exercise science people that they have around there, that's not really something you can control. I'm interested in Tillman. I'm interested to see how they use him down the stretch, when how much they're gonna rest Porzingis and, make sure that he doesn't take any risks with some of these stretches going down the rest of the regular season. And if Tillman's gonna jump into that spot in the rotation, if Cornette's gonna be in there in a real way. It's just something to watch. Anything else that you guys want to add? Do you want to get into Duncan Robinson at all? Because the Heat, look, it's hard to say like it's a total rivalry with the Heat when the Celtics swept that this year, but I still feel like there's always a thing with the Heat and this team. And when they won last time, there's no Butler on the floor and Rozier goes down partway through.
I would go the opposite. I think it is a rivalry, just given the playoffs and how that history has played out recently. I'm glad no one got hurt. This is not something I necessarily expect from either Jaylen Brown or Duncan Robinson to get contentious to the point of people possibly getting injured. That's not something that I think anybody expects from either of them. Basketball is basketball. Things happen. Tempers flare. But yeah, I think it's good that they don't like each other. It's good for the game. It's good for what I would say has been probably the most consistent Eastern Conference rivalry. It is telling. I know Butler wasn't playing, but still, like, to sweep that team who consistently year in year out is always a good team. That's a great sign for the Celtics going forward. And so, yeah, I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the chippiness. I'm sure, and I saw Mazzulla was thrilled about it. Yeah, it was a good look.
How many NBA teams do you guys think genuinely dislike each other? I feel like it's kind of a rarity in today's game, which makes that even feel like even more of a rivalry, especially considering the fact they've been to 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals, 2 of those series going to 7 games. Like, when you look around the league, there's not like a ton of like teams that genuinely don't like each other.
Well, the Bucks have some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bucks have some stuff.
Bucks
There's
and
some
Indy.
Giannis and his precious game ball. I'd say there's some true animosity there.
And that also, I think that part of that is like they played 5 times in a matter of like 3 months. So like I think that plays into a little bit too. But when you're talking like around the league, like consistent rivalries over the last couple of years, like I feel like this is the only one.
It's like the entire league against Trae Young.
Yeah, that's a fair one.
Yeah. Or maybe even going back just a little bit, even like maybe the Cavs Warriors. I don't even that. I don't know if they disliked each other the way that these two teams. Like I think part of it is just the whole Heat culture thing, whether it's real or fake. Like that comes off that the way it is, and it I think they try to buy into that persona, and they when Jimmy Butler is on, he's really on, and he doesn't try to make friends out there, and each team has broken the other team's heart. So yeah, I hope they meet up in the playoffs again, without any injury or anybody getting tied up the way it happened. But yeah, everybody walked away. It was good.
With the Heat stuff, I mean, look, I think that'll be there as long as there's the connection that Pat Riley and anyone who's connected to Danny Ainge, there's still an Ainge that works in Boston, and Brad Stevens worked under Danny Ainge, and you can look at Mazzulla and say that he's Stevens' protege, and Pat Riley's still there. So Pat Riley and Danny Ainge hated each other. So I think some of it comes down from the top on both sides. I don't know if Brad Stevens hates anyone with the Heat, but I think it goes the other direction. I think the Heat definitely hate the Celtics from the top down. That's like Heat culture.
It's fair.
It's hating
It's fair.
Boston.
And even like you look at the recent Haslam comments, like it goes back a good while now where these teams like really don't like each other. So I think like in the current NBA, I'd argue that this might be the best rivalry right now in the current landscape of the league.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that.
All right, let's move on to Take Flight. This is the portion of the pod when we go through just a couple quick hits around the league, and we're going to start with All-Star Weekend. And All-Star Weekend, I mean, it's as easy as this. What are you looking forward to most? For me, it's absolutely Jaylen Brown in the dunk contest. I'm so glad that we're actually getting it. I always find the skills competitions around All-Star Weekend to be way more entertaining than the game itself. Like, the game is the game. It's going to be a crazy number of points, and I like the skills competition more. I think Jaylen Brown getting a little rest last night, I don't have a problem with that. He's going in. Everybody's talking about how physical it's going to be. Be in the dunk contest, so I like it.
We talked about this too last week. Justin, has he given any more insight into what his plans? I know he doesn't want to show his cards yet. Has he given any more insight into what he's going to do?
He did. He did say expect Jason Tatum to be involved in some capacity, and Tatum said he'd be open to that. So I'm looking forward to that. I mean, people eat that stuff up.
Yeah, my pitch after watching the Super Bowl and it adds, bring the Dunk Kings. Have him dunk over. Yeah, I mean,
over Brady?
Over Brady or Affleck or Damon. It's in the zeitgeist now, whether for good or bad. People will recognize it immediately. I'm sure, Affleck or Damon would run. It feels like they anytime a major Boston athlete asks them to be a part of something, they're like down in a heartbeat. So,
are they going to go to Indy though?
Yeah,
yeah, that's the problem.
I mean, the All-Star game is there, so
I know with the location.
Yeah, so I would like to see it. Do a little bit cross promotion. Yeah, and that's we usually that sort of kitschy stuff is enough to win you some brownie points. When get that coveted 10 in the All-Star dunk contest.
Now, if Tatum's involved in Jaylen's dunk, is it possible Jaylen dunks over Deuce? Because Deuce is kind of tall. He's tall for his age.
Maybe if he's on Tatum's shoulders.
That's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. We can't put both Tatums at risk.
Yeah. I am also really interested in Steph Curry, Sabrina Ionescu doing this 3-point shootout. First time ever NBA versus WNBA contest. I really like it. I think it's a good place to showcase both of their talents. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that.
I think it's really cool. You do notice, and over the last couple years, I know the NBA as a partner has always been cross promotion with the WNBA, but I feel like it's really ramped up, and perhaps it's just some popularity of having some big stars emerge from college going into the WNBA. But I think it's cool that they're incorporating that. I'm excited. Steph, just hope it's nobody takes it easy from either side. I want 100% effort on both sides.
I think, and they both have that edge. So I'm with it. What event are you looking forward to the most, Justin?
Definitely Jaylen in the dunk contest. In fact, he has the second shortest odds. I might sprinkle on Jaylen. I think he's going to surprise some people. I don't think we've seen all of his bag, and I think he's really gonna show off some moves. I think McClung is obviously like a heavy favorite, and he should be because he won it last year. And we saw that man can jump. But I definitely am looking forward to see what Jaylen can do, because a lot of people are saying like, oh, I don't know why he's doing it. He's more of an in-game dunker. Like, what exactly is an in-game dunker? Like, if you can dunk, you can dunk, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited to see what he can do, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
How do y'all feel about because all these skills challenges are going to be happening at Lucas Oil Stadium? They're going to have an LED court. I am kind of I'm sort of curmudgeonly about it.
Me, my feelings on these courts, man. It's the same thing with the in-season tournament, and I'm like, why are you guys so obsessed with the court? Like,
Yeah.
come up with something else. It's so I'm not gonna pretend like they're doing this in the playoffs or the finals or anything. So it's some kind of sacred ground. It's just I have a prediction that it's gonna be very annoying to watch. I
Yeah.
don't want something annoying and flashing and like I get annoyed enough by those stupid different colored courts in the IST. I can't imagine what the
Yeah.
LED thing is gonna be.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to give live stats. I mean, I think, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a like a precursor of sorts
I
to
know.
be like, let's try it out and let's see what happens. And maybe like who knows, like this is like the finals court in a few years where you're getting like live betting updates on the
Oh,
court in real time, which I wouldn't be surprised by. I mean, Turp, how do you feel about the court of the future?
I'm with Megan. I hate it. I hate it. Just leave the court how it is. Like if you want to
Yeah.
do the betting live update, so be it. Just put it next to the score ticker. Like there's no reason to make the court like
or make an
obnoxious
alternate
and-
broadcast, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like there's no reason to like mess with the court and make it like LED. And like, is
It's
this going to
just
be
stupid.
actually on the real court or is this just on the broadcast? Because I couldn't imagine like trying to participate in this skills competition. And the court's like
I
changing
thought it
colors.
was the real court.
So it
I
is the
believe
real
it's
court.
the real
I
court.
wasn't
Like
sure
it's
if it
the
was or not.
physical court.
Right.
Like
And
right.
it's pretty cool.
Here's
but
the
that's
other
obnoxious.
thing. That's dangerous. And not in the
Yes.
way that Jaylen Brown was slipping around on the IST court. Dangerous in that, like, what if someone hacks it? What if someone
Oh, yeah.
hacks the LED court and they put up like, hey, look at so-and-so's Instagram likes. And
Yeah.
it's,
yeesh,
all of a
yeesh,
sudden
yeah.
you have like a big booty on the floor or something,
Yeah.
like this could happen. That would be terribly dangerous for the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And
could really backfire. It would
I-
be terrible if someone gets the idea to do that.
the other thing,
Foreshadowing something.
yeesh.
No, I'm not a hacker.
The other thing, you mentioned it like jokingly, but I think it is true. Is like, I don't know how this will work as a playing surface. I'm sure they've tried it out in some way, but I don't know. I can't think of anybody who's been like, yeah, we played on a screen before.
Right.
It's a. I mean, who knows? Well, maybe it'll be really cool, but I'm sort of very reserved about it personally.
All right, moving on because we have a little more to tackle. Esteban, you threw this in here, so you pitched this.
Yes.
The All-Star Weekend destination that needs to happen.
Yes, as y'all know, I am not a Boston native, but the All-Star Game needs to come back to Boston. It has not happened here since 1964. Lyndon Baines Johnson was president. The nation was still mourning the assassination of John F. Kennedy. That was the last time the NBA's premier event outside of the playoffs and the finals was in Boston, one of the game's most historic cities where two major stars are from. You have the parquet, you have the legacy of Red Auerbach. Bring it back. It's kind of crazy that it hasn't happened between, like I said, 64 and now. I mean, 60 years, literally 60 years. I mean, the city's grown so much. There's so much it has to offer now. The TD Garden is it's done a lot of great renovations over the years. Yeah, it needs to come back.
TD Garden's definitely doing its job. The Bruins own that building, but they've done a really nice job with their renovations over the last several years. And if you look, like, obviously Chase Center is brand new or just a couple years old, so you understand why they're having it out there. And then the new Clippers arena, you're gonna want to debut that. The only
Right.
thing is anytime, like, it might be the last time that they had this was in 1964 because that was the last time like the MBTA was dependable, like anytime that we have these
Yeesh.
conversations, the infrastructure of the city, we're talking about moving around a bunch of people in the middle of February. I
Sure.
there's a side of me that's like, yes, the Celtics organization has done their work and their partnership with the Bruins in order to be a host city, and they certainly have the pedigree and they certainly have everything to offer, but it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know, man. All I read is about the T going bankrupt and people being trapped in tunnels and trains catching on fire. So
That's a really good
it's a little
point.
tough.
That's a really good point. I just look at even with that, and hopefully that wouldn't be the case. But it's just kind of crazy to me that the city with one of the two most historic franchises in the league, I think safe to say, Lakers and Celtics, and they just haven't hosted. I guess part of it too is like, where would the because usually they have the main arena and then like a separate like facility for the events, other all-star events, the skills challenges and stuff. What would that be? Would it be like Heinz or something?
I don't know. That's the other thing is because if you're looking at facilities, the Gillette Stadium is so far away.
Yeah,
That's like a conservatively from TD Garden, that's a 40-minute drive
Probably
if
couldn't be
nobody
outdoors either.
if nobody
yeah,
else is on the road. So I
yeah.
don't know.
I don't know, Turp, would you like to see it back in
There's
Boston?
like I guess there's like a Gannis over by
Yeah,
DEO.
Might be too
yeah,
small for what they're looking
Yeah.
for, though. I would love to see it back in Boston. I just like we were just talking about, like logistically, will it make sense and is it possible? I know Adam Silver was reported he was kind of encouraging Boston to submit an application to host the All-Star game, and I think it eventually it'll come back. But I mean, as long as this train, like Megan said, is not running the MBTA, like we just don't have the reliable
Just
infrastructure to
blame
welcome
it
all
on
these people.
blame
Like,
it on the MBTA,
like seriously, like let them get their stuff together, then maybe we could host an all-star game. For
yeah,
now, they're ruining the fun.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, let's hit this one quickly. It's kind of like a non-starter news story, but still interesting from Woj in that the Warriors and Lakers engaged in a very brief conversation about the possibility of LeBron moving on after airing his grievances in a very vague way on social media. Um, and what was interesting to me in this report was the kind of side note that Woj put in there that the Sixers reached out as well and said, hey, to Jeannie Buss and Clutch, is there any interest here? Could we make something happen? And they said, how about Embiid? And they replied with like a click. Can you
Yeah.
see, 39 years old, um, hasn't done much with Anthony Davis since the bubble playoffs and championship. Can you see LeBron going anywhere else to finish his career? And what else did you take away from that story from Woj?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was interesting because I think it was the week before there was sort of that unsubstantiated rumor that the Lakers were going to have some sort of trade for him at the deadline or near the deadline. Obviously, that didn't happen, and the Lakers were like, "No, this is not true." But the fact that it's happened like twice now with these stories is odd. I just don't know. Like, I can see him going somewhere else. I just don't know who has enough to trade for LeBron James. That's sort of been my question throughout all of this. And like, why would the Lakers give up their marquee guy, not just their marquee guy, one of the marquee guys ever to play the game? Like even with the Warriors thing, like how could who would you have traded outside? Like you want to pair him with Stephen Curry, but I can't think of anybody you would trade for LeBron James besides Stephen Curry.
They had 4 tradable contracts that were on the table from their roster. I can't rattle them all off the top of my head, but I I don't know. Even that 1-for-1 feels a little ridiculous for
Yeah,
where both the franchises are. I think it would have to be a 1-for-1 of somebody like, Luca or someone like that, where it's somebody who's been in an organization and is extremely talented for several years at this
yeah,
point and it's kind of stagnated with the organization, maybe a star who's forcing his way out. And so both stars are disgruntled. But even so, it's like, okay, well, I don't really see LeBron in Dallas. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's kind of a strange situation. It's part of being in business with LeBron is giving over a lot of the personnel power and everything like that. But I get what you're saying about, like, there's smoke to this, and it shouldn't be totally ignored, even though in this case it didn't come to anything. I don't think it's ridiculous to say that it's possible LeBron doesn't finish his career in LA.
Yeah. Again, I could see it happening as a free agent, or he's saying I wanna move on. But I mean, Turkey, who would have enough to trade for LeBron? Like a trade, like what would that even look like? Can you think of anything that would work?
I can't even think of one that would work, especially in that short period of time at the trade deadline. Like, this is something that would have to come to fruition over the offseason. And considering next year is the last year he's under contract before coming an unrestricted free agent, I don't think anyone would trade for him, period, right now. Like, I don't blame Daryl Morey for reaching out. Like, I think he's just doing his due diligence, especially if
and
he
he
caught
reaches
word.
out on everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like shoot or shoot. I respect the hell out of
Yeah.
it. And same thing for the Warriors. Like, of course you're going to check in. Like, if you think they're like, you see those subtle messages from LeBron, of course you're going to check in. That doesn't necessarily mean he was available, and turns out he wasn't. But I think at this point, like, LeBron just wants to play with Bronny. Like, he's not going to uproot his family right now. Bronny's so close with USC where he's living now. I just can't see him moving his family right now. He just wants to play with Bronny. Like, I don't necessarily get the vibe that he necessarily cares about winning another one. Like, I think he's content with just being the star player he is, and he's just waiting for his son. I think that's the last bucket list item for him. Like, he knows he's accomplished a ton in his career, and I don't think right now he's an intelligent guy. I think he knows that this Lakers team isn't enough right now to compete in the West, and he knows they're not quite there. So he's going to wait for Bronny to get to the league, and then that'll choose his destination, and that's where he's going to finish his career. I mean, he's made it clear that he wants to play with his son. So I think that's all we're waiting for. And I mean, I saw in the recent mock drafts that Bronny might even go undrafted, which he hasn't had an impressive year as a freshman. So we'll see if he declares, but like, he's a freshman. He's obviously had the health problems over the summer. So I think that's what we're waiting for when it comes to LeBron, though. It's like he kind of knows what he's established, and he just wants to play with his son at this point.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, I think that's it. We're going to roll into All-Star Week next week. Hoping to have some fun guests on the pod coming up in the next month or so. So stay tuned for that. But we will be with you next week, probably right after some of the All-Star competitions, to try to dissect what we saw and, how we felt about that LED court. Thanks, guys.